you don't want to add too much flour. I don't want it to be too dense. Okay, so anyway, it's really satisfying, like I was saying, to just squeeze it through my hands. I can get out my aggressions when people make me mad. Okay, anyway, that's only partially true. Welcome back, friends. It is Lauren the Soap Witch, and it is time for Witch's Kitchen. So in this one, I am going to show like the longer version of how I make my bread. So I am really in love with this recent recipe. It's not really that recent, but with this recipe that I make for whole wheat bread. And let's just go ahead and get into it. So I'm starting off here with 1 cup of water. And then I am just going to measure up to 1 1/4 cup to add 1/4 cup milk. Let me know if that makes sense. So it's 1 cup water, 1/4 cup milk, and then you're going to warm it up. Well, I'm going to warm it up in the microwave, and you want it around 105 to 115 degrees. I actually just usually do this all in that gray bowl there, but for the video I was trying to be fancy. Anyway, you saw when I took the temperature, I said 105 degrees, we're ready to go. So next up, I'm going to put this yeast in there. I always buy the Rapid Rise yeast. Come on, mouth. Jesus, you guys sabotage me in every video? Okay. Rapid Rise yeast. Okay, that's a tongue twister though. I'm just saying. Cut me some slack. Anywho, so it just needs 1 packet. Don't worry, I won't have the recipe linked in the description below. Anywho, I just dumped the whole packet in there. With the Rapid Rise, let me say it slowly, yeast, you don't need to do the whole yeast testing to make sure that it's like all the way in, it's safe to use and it's activated. It's fine, just dump it in there. So next is 3 tablespoons of butter. I don't have the recipe in front of me, but I'm pretty sure that's what it is. And you have to cut it up into like 6 pieces. So here I was supposed to add salt and honey, and I did not turn the camera back on. Woe is me. So anyway, it's 1.5 teaspoons of salt, 3 tablespoons of honey. It's in there, trust me. So next we're going in with the whole wheat. So it's just basic whole wheat that I got from the grocery store. It's their brand, nothing special. So I'm just going to take my cup. You need 3 cups total, and maybe a little extra. You'll see the extra. So going in, measuring out my first cup, and then I just kind of slide it against the bag to like level it off. That's not the most professional way, but I'm not a professional. Okay, so anyway, I'm just going in and measuring out, trying to make a huge mess, but maybe a tiny mess because I am who I am. Going in with that second cup, and then 1 more cup of whole wheat will do the trick. So I'm going to get that in there again, just scraping it against the top of the bag to just level it off, because you don't want to overdo it, you don't want to underdo it. So anywho, can I get it in there? Let's move along. Okay. Carrying on. So that's the 3 cups. So then I take a wooden spoon, because anytime you're stirring it with a spoon, they always say wooden spoon. So I'm just going to take it and stir it and just sort of lightly combine all the ingredients together. Scrape the side of the bowl, and I'm really just stirring it until it never gets impossible to stir, but until it just kind of gets really hard to manipulate with the spoon. So kind of close to that at this point here. And so at this point, usually when I am just struggling to get it to do anything further or combine any further or mesh together any further, I go in with my hands. Now, a lot of people will use their stand mixer and use the dough hook. I think that's what it's called. But I really just like to go in with my hands. So I only use this flour for this bread, and I did wash my hands before I started, just so you know. And so I start putting a little bit of flour on my hands. I scrape off the little bit of dough I have on the spoon, just preserve as much as I can. And so the recipe says you can add more flour as you need. It's usually like 1 to 2 tablespoons at a time. So I just scoop out a little bit with my hands. I rub it between my hands so the dough doesn't stick so badly to my hands, and the rest I let fall into the dough. And then I start mushing it together. That's a professional technical term, by the way. Mushing it together with my hands. So then you can check and see how much is sticking to my hands. Too much. So I go in with just a little bit more flour. I rub it between my hands. I let the rest fall on top of the existing dough, and I squish and mush it together with my hands. I'm starting the kneading process while I'm also adding in flour as needed. The consistency that you want is where it's slightly sticky, not sticky enough to stick to your hands, but a little bit, tacky. Not quite even tacky. It's hard to explain. You see how it's still sticking to my hands though? I don't want that. So I'm going to go in to my bag and get a little bit more flour out. I'm going to rub it between my hands, and then I'm going to let the rest fall on top of the dough. And then go back in with my hands, start kneading, mushing it all together, incorporating it all together until the dough stops sticking to my hands. So it will still feel a little sticky, but the dough will stop sticking to my hands the way that it is, that it has the last 2 times you've seen me check. So just proceed. I don't know what it is. It's just really satisfying to squeeze the dough between my hands. See, it's still a little bit stuck to my hands. And so I'm going to go back into my bag, pull out a little bit more. It's like a tablespoon or less at a time. I don't want to do too much at a time because you don't want to add too much flour. I don't want it to be too dense. Okay, so anyway, it's really satisfying, like I was saying, to just squeeze it through my hands. I can get out my aggressions when people make me mad. Okay, anyway, that's only partially true. I do just in general like the feeling of working with my hands, which is why I prefer to knead it with my hands. I know, personal preference. So also it starts to get to the point where you can use the dough to like clean up the bowl. I do that. Just get all the rest of the stuff that's stuck to the side of the bowl onto included into the dough that you're working into. Can I get my words together? That you're working in the bowl. Whatever, you know what I mean, don't you? Maybe, hopefully. So anyway, this is pretty close to where I'm wanting it. I'm like almost right there. I know I'm gonna grab a little bit more just to, feel satisfied with how it feels. But you see how it's not really sticking to my hands much anymore. So this might be the last time I dip my hands in there. I don't know. We'll see, won't we? And so I'm really just starting to knead the dough, and I use my knuckles. I use my palm. Is that the heel of your palm? Is that what they call that? I use all that, and I really just get in there and I just start kneading and pushing and getting it all incorporated and getting that dough to the right consistency where I want it. So I'm happy with where the dough is now. The way it's not sticking to my hands anymore. It feels slightly sticky, but it's not sticking to my hands. It is staying like kind of self-contained as I work it with my hands. And I set a timer for 8 minutes because you're supposed to knead the dough for 8 minutes. Kneading the dough is a very important process with bread or anything bread-like where you're having to use dough or make dough. And so it helps get it to the right consistency. And so as I'm kneading, I'm like pulling the dough, stretching it, just looking at the consistency, and then I just kind of fold it back up, go back to kneading it with my hands, my knuckles, my fingers, whatever. I feel like if you hear stuff in the background, you do not hear it. I cannot help it. I'm a family person, and folks be trying to sabotage me. Okay, they're not trying to sabotage me, but I'm just saying you don't hear it. So anyway, going back to kneading the dough, and it gets a little bit softer, a little bit more elastic, stretchy type. And so I'm checking for all that as I'm kneading the dough just to make sure I'm doing it right. Because it has actually been a couple of weeks since I had made bread at this point, because life just be flip-floppy and all over the place. But we need bread because I don't really buy it anymore because I like making it. Anywho, off topic, or is it? Whatever, doesn't matter. So I'm just going to continue to knead the dough, mash it with my fingers, knead it with the heel of my palm, all of the above, until the timer goes off. I usually put the timer like on the microwave or something, because I'm not trying to like make assumptions on has it been 5 minutes. I got ADHD. I don't know. 5 minutes will feel like 10 minutes, and 10 minutes can feel like 2 minutes. So I don't trust it. I need to set the timer. So I just keep on going, get out my frustrations, enjoy the feel of it between my hands, all of the above, until I know that it is nice and ready. And so you notice the change in the consistency as you proceed. Baking is really like it's exact, but it's also a feeling process. You just start to know and feel when things are right and when they're not, and when they're ready and when they're not. So after the 8 minutes is off, form it into a ball. And then people that usually use their stand mixer will transfer their dough to a different bowl, but I just use the same bowl. So I shape it into a ball. I take whatever nonstick cooking spray I have. You spray the entirety of the bowl just like I'm gonna do here. And I'm an excessive sprayer, so I'll probably be spraying much more than I need. It don't matter, I don't care. So after you spray the bowl, you rub your dough ball all over it just to get it kind of coated in the nonstick spray. And then I also spray the top of it because enough is never enough, and I also feel like it helps it gets a little browner. So I thoroughly wet a towel, wring it out. I use hot water so that it's warm, and leave it over the top and let it rise. And so now that it's risen, I punch it down and let it deflate, get the air out of it. And I feel like it usually rises a little better, to be honest, but it was pretty chilly in my kitchen this day when I made this bread, but it still turned out fine. It turned out fine. So afterwards, you put it on a lightly floured surface. I did not flour this paper. I should have floured this paper, and it likes to roll up, so I put all this stuff on the corners so it didn't roll up and get on all my nerves. It still kind of got on my nerves, but anyway. You roll it into a ball, and then after you roll it into a ball, you take your hands and you just shape it into a loaf shape. The other recipe I used to do had you just kind of roll it, not quite like a cinnamon roll, but sort of. So it made the ends kind of wonky when I did it this way. So the ball and the loaf into the loaf is better. So going back in with the cooking spray and just gonna spray my loaf pan now an excessive amount because no sticking. The bread actually never sticks. It slides right out the pan, which I appreciate, okay, because if you're a cake baker, that is not always the case. Okay, anyway, so now that I sprayed that down, I'm going to plop my loaf into the pan, and then I'm going to take my nice warm cloth, spray the top. Okay, don't forget that. I like to just spray the top. It gets it a little browner, I feel like. And so then I'm gonna take my cloth. I ran some water over it again so it'll be warm, put it over the top of the bread, and I let it rise for 35 minutes. I don't remember what the recipe says. Is it 30? I'm not sure, but for me, I feel like 35 minutes is perfect, so that's what I do. And then I just admire what a pretty loaf of bread is. And then I put it in the oven. Since I'm using a metal pan, I'm doing 45 minutes. I think it says you could do maybe 30 if it's a glass pan. So anyway, I put it in the oven 45 minutes, I just lied to you, on 350 degrees. And now it's all beautiful and finished. Lovely loaf of bread. I couldn't be prouder of myself. Let me toot my own horn. Okay, so the assistant usually cuts the bread for me because I've assigned him that job. That poor man. Okay, so and this is the final cut bread. It's so pretty. I'm so proud of myself. So I always have to make myself a nice slice of toast after I've made my batch of bread. What do you guys do if you're a baker? Do you have to make yourself toast or what have you? It doesn't look like I toasted this bread, but I did. See how it's melty? Okay, so I like lots of butter, little bit of jelly on my toast. How do you like your toast if you like toast? So look at that. It's pretty. It's finished. It was delicious. I just want to tell you. So we use this bread for sandwiches, burgers, anything that you would use bread for. We're a fan of it. And the whole wheat bread, this is like one of my favorite recipes. It just tastes really good, and I don't even like bread, okay, just to let you know. So to preserve it, I usually just put it in a Ziploc bag and call it a day. So that's all I've got for this one. I really enjoyed sharing this video. If you like what you saw, please consider subscribing to my channel so you don't miss any of my future uploads, and give this video a like. All right, let me know if you decide to make your own bread. All right, talk to you later.